Welcome. It's been a while, hasn't it? Well, I'm here to tell you that we've been working on a lot of things since then. And by we, I mean B&G. So, it's been a while since our last video update because there's been a lot going on, both in my personal life as well as my professional life. We recently conducted a huge event, an end of campaign event. This campaign spanned about 3 years, give or take. A little more, a little less, but it's been in the build-up for so much longer. It involved over 3 different D&D parties and over 20 characters in the game. Not to mention all the previous player characters, all the NPCs. It was a huge thing. We ended up building up to it through several different sessions leading up, through different people, different actions, different campaign arcs, all intertwining, everything affecting the world in its own way. And to end this off on, we actually had a tremendous end of campaign event where we had 2 tables running simultaneously, one being run by myself, one being run by G, with a large group of people, some people even controlling multiple characters of theirs that they've controlled over the course of the last 3 years. These characters all united against what was a previous player party's, we'll say, mistakes in not dealing with a certain big bad quite the way that they were supposed to. It worked as a temporary solution, but there will be several videos, and most likely podcasts coming soon, which will show you a little more about the people who were involved, what exactly was involved in the actual event itself, the campaign. You've definitely seen bits and pieces if you've been checking up on the other podcasts of some points. Let's see if you can work out which ones are which when you start watching the big podcast. But that's one of the reasons that there's been a little less content being posted lately. I've had to devote a huge amount of time to that. It took a solid month or so of planning, extra writing, spending 8 to 10 hours out of my average day off. That's right, day off in a week. It's pretty crazy. Writing specifically for this. Then, G and I had to work out our details, get the information correct between us, make sure that if something happened on his table at a certain time, the players on my table, being in the same area, would see signs of it. And so we set up a little communications channel, and it was pretty hectic. It went well though. Everyone seemed to have a great time. They did surprisingly well. Very few ended up ending on a bad note. We only actually had one person end up dying in the end, and the way he died he was happy with. But you will hear more about that event specifically in the near future. I'm planning on arranging podcasts with several of the people that came to those, in addition to probably a few Where Are They Now segments following that. But, on to other news. What else has been happening? What have I been working on? What have we been acquiring to increase the Of Dice and Men experience? Well, let me tell you. First of all, I'm going to show you some of the new purchases we've made. Props, extra books, content. We have little props, mini spellbooks. Very handy. And interesting when certain things are written in them in invisible ink. We have little puzzles, little extras, things that I've picked up along the way for reasonably cheap, but they can be used really well for effective puzzles in the middle of the game. Sense. This place is great. This is from a company called Adventure Sense. And what it is you can buy these little throw bags. Comes with 8 per canister, and you get little scent bags. Now these are great. You can toss around the table. They walk into a forest. You toss 8 of them, scatter them around the table, 1 near each player, 2 near the center, and then the entire room begins to smell nice, like a forest would. It increases the immersive experience that you get from an Of Dice and Men session. And of course, we're always looking at getting more things to improve this experience as is. For example, I have a mate of mine that actually designs leather bags, based in Hobart. If anyone's interested in this, I will endeavour to put the link to his Facebook page in the description below. And I use these bags to hold coins. We have actual coins here, things that we've gotten from a place called Campaign Coins, I believe. And I'll just put a couple close to the camera. They're pretty decent quality, and they're all metal too. Well, they're not just El Cheapo plastic. You've got different kinds, you've got gold, copper, silver, platinum, and they've each got a number on them, so you don't need hundreds of thousands of these to give your players hundreds of thousands of gold, or copper, as it would be. But these are all really, really handy, and while they are not the most practical things as far as sessions go, the amount of fun players have when you hand them over a bag that they found in character and they get to pour it out and count out how much money is in there, it's pretty good. People have expressed their gratitude and their enjoyment of having little things like this. It just adds to the experience, builds on the immersion, and that's something that, while isn't made by props and toys and extra stuff, it really helps. Combined with the storytelling, the music, the attitude, and the roleplay, it can create, with the right atmosphere, a very enjoyable gaming experience. Which is what we're about here. Next up, we have models. We've got some new fanciful ones, kind of chunky. Most of the players are looking forward to, well, not looking forward to some of these things, whereas other ones are cool little ones that they can use as their characters. Which, of course, I generally run using models and the board and other things because I feel that it helps people envision the experience. There are a lot of people that prefer the theatre of the mind, and that's all well and good. Personally, I prefer the models because it helps everyone visualise the same thing. But theatre of the mind is still a valid gaming ideal, and there are several people who actually play with me who do enjoy that. It just, while distance can be an issue sometimes, a lot of the time I find that this, using models, using the battle board, using those space tiles, really helps to sort out any issues that may arise. Were they close enough to flank? Are they able to get into flanking without an attack of opportunity? Are they able to reach that door and open it before the lava hits them? These are all things that, while obviously in a theatre of the mind, you embellish a little more and you build on. I find that the tiles add an extra layer to the game that I believe helps everyone enjoy it that little bit more and helps prevent confusion. Next, supplements. Spell cards. These things are really handy, especially for new players, first time players, people who haven't played spellcasters before, people who are even just new to that particular system. It really helps, rather than having pages upon pages of spells to pick from, you just pull out a few cards, you're like, these are the spells I've got, these are the spells I'm choosing today, and it's got the descriptions there. You don't have to go book diving, you don't have to do anything else. They're great, they're not too expensive, good purchase, and if you're going to be running 5th Ed, I do recommend that you get at least one set of spell cards for each class that is running them. Or even just simply ask your players, if they're going to be playing that class, maybe they go halves in them. They use the cards as long as you've got them, and then afterwards you pay them the rest and keep them, depending on how they go. Next up, new systems. We have accrued a decent selection, this isn't even all of them, of extra systems and extra books for current systems that we can now run. Some of these things are pretty damn chunky, but I am keen to see how people enjoy them and whether or not they'll become a regular staple of what people ask for. There are several things in here that separate them as unique gaming systems, and ones that I am very keen on trying. We've yet to have anyone ask specifically for them, but that said, we've only got some of these books recently in. Which leads me to my next little reveal. There's a extra prop here. This is something that's very easy to do. All it was a large glass, spray painted over with glossy gold, and then scratched off with a pair of scissors. And now, I've actually used this once before. You fill it up with coloured liquid. I used jelly because I didn't want it to risk spilling, so red jelly up to about here. The players get this, and it looks pretty cool. If I can dig up any photos, I'll stick them on the video just for a quick second to have a look at them. If I can't, then, well. But, now, we have been acquiring some other props, some more hands-on ones, and these are great. When the party comes across a weapon and you're trying to describe what it is and they don't quite get it, or they just can't get a feel for what it is, you hand them this and you're like, you found this. And while this one is particular, is a replica of Sauron's mace, it is a great example of a maul or even a heavy mace that they find. Sometimes even you can describe a certain magical artifact to match it, which can result in some interesting scenarios, albeit when art gets involved later on and players start drawing up their characters, which is something that has become quite a large thing lately, which is great. The extra creativity that this game and other games, such as Dungeons & Dragons, Starfinder, encourages and helps people grow. The amount of commissions people get for commission art, and they end up drawing up characters, which inspires others to do more art and practice. And I mean, I picked up art. It's not very good, but learning, you got to start somewhere, and it's a lot better than what it was. We'll say that and leave it there. But this is something. This is something that I painted myself. She's a little dusty, got some cobwebs up there. Now, this model is something that it took me about a solid 48 hours or so to put together and paint, but it is an amazing model. And what's more, using things like this really helps add to the immersion. When they find something and you can actually throw it in and be like, this is what you're fighting, rather than using a stand-in. Stand-ins are perfectly fine. Obviously, not everyone has the models they need. But getting little things like this really helps improve upon what I was saying before, with immersion, having the right things, having all the things that you need to have the session run smoothly. We also, thanks to a few friends of mine, now have a few more assorted tiles. These are things I can layer over the usual battle board to improve the experience, and rather than me having to draw up, say, there's a building here, or you're in the sewers and the sewer runs through, or the path splits and there's a small waterfall in the centre of town. These are things that I can now place and put down instead of drawing them onto the board, and actually have a bit more of that extra oomph when it comes to describing an environment. Now, there are a few other small bits and pieces here, physical ones, like we got a new fridge that we can actually use for customers. Customers label their things, stick them in there, and as long as they leave the label on there, they can leave them there over the course of a week and use them next session. And that's all well and good. In addition, so we're not using the tiny fridge, we also have a small microwave, a jug, we have a small coffee and tea section. The map will be getting redone. After recent events and what people have been changing in the world, there is a lot that needs to be restructured. And hopefully, over tax time, with that and the extra help from our Patreon supporters, which I very much appreciate, by the way. That is, the people that support us on Patreon at the moment are some of the reasons that we have these things. As far as if Dice and Men goes, we earn enough to cover the bills. And that's really about it. The cat. 1 second, please. Okay, so, next up, Now, some of you, mainly on Patreons, have seen this before. Other ones have also seen some of the art and the bits and pieces inside that denotes the ancients, the custom pantheon of Pethuania. Now, there has been a development. There is another ancient coming to play called Ulvartag. Some players have met him. Not many players have forgotten him. And, for starters, there's a story about that we will go over at another point. But art is being commissioned, the designer is lined up, and I've already written all the information about him to have him added to the book. I've been also working on adding a few more descriptions about certain areas. I've been cataloguing towns, cities, locations of interest throughout Pethuania and writing them into a document. In this document, there will be a lot of different information scattering across the world that eventually I intend moving into a proper book. And what's more, these books will probably be split into several, being religion, one on the world, one on the monsters, some on the extra planes that I've created and been using. This is all very, very far in the future, but I'm working towards it as we speak. Another thing that I have been working on is extra languages. Not so much normal learning languages, but languages of ancient civilizations. Now, as a disclaimer, if you are in my Monday group in the desert, you've already seen some of this, but I ask you to look away now. For the next minute, I'll be showing things that could be potential spoilers. This. I have devised an alphabet for these symbols. Not only just an alphabet, but certain symbols mean certain words. This one, for example, that is a replacement for the. This here, this one, the squiggles, that means that there is a double, whatever is preceding it is a double letter. Double M, double R, etc. And that is, I'm very keen to see how the players handle that. As far as that goes with the Cypher script and things like that, I'll be running it so, rather than giving the words exactly, they can get letters, or work out what certain symbols mean, or the meaning of certain large words, and from there they can sort of piece together. I don't expect this to be a quick thing, if you make one successful check and uncover the meaning of this entire language. It's going to take the party several months of different sessions to piece together words, what certain symbols mean, and then they can go back and decipher everything they've found and hopefully, pick up the language, not to speak. I haven't worked out how to speak it. Probably won't. Okay, maybe. But goals, long-term goals, not now. And that is going surprisingly well. Next, I've been trying to create a few more additional scenarios, which little combat things that I will be introducing to several groups. On the Patreon, we will be posting up pictures, small detailed things on certain scenarios that I run, unique little ideas that aren't really thought of in the base book. Well, there's a lot that isn't in the base book, but things that I haven't found online and that I've implemented, there's a word, and the players have really enjoyed. The last one, for example, was somewhat of a bobsled run, but the bobsled was a 30-foot by 30-foot sheet of ice, and they were going down a long, windy, slide-like thing. If anyone's played Super Mario 64, I may have borrowed a little bit of inspiration from one of those. You know what I mean. There weren't any penguins involved in this, though. But it was a very tight balancing act between where they stood on the platform at the end of the round, where weight was distributed, where the platform slid, which direction, whether they had to have the platform leaning on a certain angle before they hit the corner, based on weight beforehand. It worked out really well. It was a unique, fun encounter that, while the actual combat itself there was combat happening on this, wasn't overly threatening. The overall scenario, the terrain, was the threat. Fighting these 15 hit point creatures that do d6 damage and have 2 attacks around, when you're playing against a party of level 6 Gestalt characters, it's actually, Gestalt by the way, it's quite interesting. It makes for some interesting combinations in the party, in addition to a few interesting experiences as a DM that you need to learn to deal with. Like, one character having 3 breath weapons. It's interesting. But little things like that I've found have started to enrich the player experience and create a much more varied session. And I feel that that is the key to keeping it fresh. Don't go through the same dungeon crawls all the time. Throw extras in there. Things that help make the situation different, new. Even if it's just an experiment. Let your players know. If you're running a session that isn't entirely pre-tested, or you want to run a new kind of encounter, let them know. Obviously, because of what Dice Men is, I normally try and test these out previously, if not with another group of friends, separately from Dice Men. Then by myself in a room, I just roll a few dice, have a scenario set up, and run through it as a sort of mock run myself. Now, on to the last topic before I look at finishing this long update. Quality of life changes for D&D 3.5. There are some for 5th, but they're not quite playtested enough yet for me to really go over them. Now, with the 3.5 quality of life changes I've made over the last few years, everyone who's played 3.5 knows it is not a balanced system. It is not a well thought out system. It is a system that is enjoyable, and it is fairly complex once you get into it. But there are so many holes in the rules. Rules as written aren't the same as rules as intended. There are so many different issues across the internet as far as balancing with classes. Certain classes are just not viable. Everything's viable. It's a matter of whether or not you want to play them or your DM helps cater for it. Or certain prestige classes that just don't stand up to even the level in the base class. Like, you lose too many spellcasting levels to be as effective as you would be taking the base class later on, and the special abilities don't really make up for that. So there are a few changes I've made to martial classes like fighters and barbarians to try and bring them up to speed a bit. Rogues to try and make it so there's less of a feat tax. For example, one of the changes I made was everyone gets weapon finesse. If you're using a light weapon, you can just choose to use your dex instead of strength to hit, similar to how finesse weapons work in 5th ed. I've also made it so every class that has full base attack, so fighters, barbarians, etc., all gain combat expertise and power attack for free. Because it makes sense. You don't have to be trained to swing your weapon as hard as you can and sacrifice accuracy. You don't have to have any specific amount of training to attempt to fight defensively, compared to what you would be doing normally. I've also made it so monks get full base attack bonus. So while they can't use weapons, they stuck with their fists and a few other things, monks generally weren't an amazing class. People always used to brag on them for not being overly effective. Several of the builds you could do with monks that you could do with barbarians just as easily, if not better. Monks were very much in that middle zone of reliable, but they didn't shine anywhere. So we gave them full base attack bonus, added a few options, made it so if you pick one of the styles from the Unearthed Arcana, then you didn't so much just lose all your features, but you got the features in addition to a couple of other things. There are a few other changes I've made, such as sorcerers, rather than simply getting nothing as they level, other than spells, because for some reason, that's just how things are. They were just very much worse than wizards for the most part, other than spells per day. I made it so they have bloodline feats. Bloodline feats such as air bloodline, earth bloodline, celestial, all these different things. And they get a free bloodline feat at level 1, and level 6 they get a feat that lets them add some benefits based on which bloodline they've got. And then I think at level 12 I gave them a bonus feat to choose from a certain list of feats. But there's a whole slew of other changes. It's a lot. I can't go through more on this. It would take an hour, maybe more. We're talking over 28 pages of minor changes here and there. Some, in the case of, say, the Marshal, major reworks. Things that, while they haven't been play tested, and everything in the quality of life changes are always subject to change. If we've played it and we find an issue with it, we'll fix it. It's just something that I feel improves balance and improves the quality of life of playing one of those classes or races. There are a few races, for example, that have level adjust. Why would you give a snow goblin a level adjust? Sure, it has an extra 2 stats over a normal goblin, and it has a bit of climb speed. It's got a racial bonus to intimidate instead of something else. Why does that need a +1 level adjust? And Azuma gets a +1 level adjust, and that's pretty founded because they get spell-like abilities, they've got no negative stats, they get bonuses to skills, they get a decent slew of stuff. Whereas a Snow Goblin's just sitting there with still overall negative stats compared to a normal race. And 1 or 2 decent racial abilities? Like, there's no reason. Like Sharakim. Sharakim are on the edge of... So they're quite a powerful race without level adjust. Or they're a very, very weak race with level adjust. And there are a lot of things that people just weren't using, so we changed it and fixed it around a bit. As far as crafting goes, I've removed the XP cost for crafting because over 4 years, I had 2 people ever use crafting. So I removed the XP cost, and while it is a little easier to abuse at this point, people are enjoying it more. They aren't abusing it for their own purpose of making money, they're using it as a source of income for equipment. They will turn around and they'll go, we can go and spend this money, but this person has a feat to craft wands. We will, instead of buying a wand, we'll give them half the money, they can craft the wand, and then we can be on our way. Save a bit of money on that. That person's feat actually has some worth. Rather than simply going, oh yeah, I've got Scribe Scroll for free, I'll never use it, I don't want to pay XP to put a spell on a bit of paper to use once. So, there are a lot of other changes, and clarifications. Clarifications on illusion rules, because Lord knows we need them. But, I've rambled on for quite some time. Long story short, this is somewhat of an update video. I wanted to thank everyone who's watched videos, who's a patron, especially those people who are patrons. They've helped me get things that I didn't realise I could have gotten. I've recently commissioned a whole bunch of art for item cards, about yay big. I just need to actually save up the money to print them out, and I'm going to stick them in a chest that I'm having custom made, and have that sit there so when someone finds an item, I can just open the chest, give them the card, write the name of the item on the little description section, and then write down what it does. And they can just hold that rather than having to scribble down +3 longsword in their inventory and then try and fit the description into a little info section that's on the character sheet. They can have a separate card for all their items. Granted, it's going to cost a bit of money in the long run to keep printing them out, but that's part of what the service is. That's part of what Of Dice and Men provides. And, well, none of that would be possible if it wasn't for the patrons, quite frankly. The customers we get in, they fund Of Dice and Men. They fund me. I'm doing this as a job now. This is my full-time job. I spend, close to 60 hours a week, either running sessions or writing for sessions. I don't get paid for 60 hours a week. That's not feasible as a business. But the amount of money that we earn through sessions, people coming to sessions, it means that I'm able to afford to live and invest back into Of Dice and Men to build it up further. The patrons, the money that they give to us is a lifesaver. It means we can afford lamps for ambience, certain spell cards, to buy markers, whiteboards, dice. I now have 7 sets of spare dice for players, so if they come along and they don't have dice, they have a set of dice that they can use. The model of Tiamat, a giant dragon, that was done with patrons' funds. All of these things are things that are going towards improving the business. This camera was bought with patron funds. This microphone was given to me by my sister on my birthday, and the laptop itself is being paid for with patrons' funds. Now, after tax time, I'm intending on getting a better quality camera so we can actually try and do some live streaming. I want to get several microphones so we can actually have the players hooked up to these and be able to talk through them. I'm not going to go ahead and say like Critical Role. It won't be like Critical Role. I'm no Matt Mercer. If I was, well, I'm not. But I feel that the players that we run with are very entertaining. And I'd like to try and branch out and show those people who are watching, viewers on YouTube, people on Facebook, even patrons, what the sessions are like, what it is they're helping to create and to better. I mean, it's probably just a little too much, but you know, it's something that I'd like to do. I'm also looking at getting coasters, wooden coasters, so we can actually have more than these. These are donated by a friend from his workplace. They had a few spare coasters and they brought them around. And they are amazing. I'm getting actual tablecloths rather than the crappy ones I have right now. I'm going to look at investing in some proper smooth ones. Then I'm going to look at covering them in a protective layer of plastic so they don't get stained. But I'm rambling again. Point is, I'd really like to thank everyone involved. I'm going to tag several people below in the description. They're people that have helped with business cards, with getting our name out there, with music, everything. Everyone who has had a hand in Of Dice and Men one way or another will be a link down below. If you have a look at that, go and check them out. Some people there are working their own business. Others have recently started up Facebook pages to promote their hobby and essentially try to turn it into a business, as I have with this. This bag, 2 of these, handmade, $40. 40 or 50. Some money. Not much money compared for what they are. This is real leather. This isn't just faux leather. It's nicely made. You've got the drawstring. It holds a surprising amount of things. Look, listen to that jingle. But I digress. I'll leave you all now. But keep an eye on this space. We've got several video ideas that we'll be working out. Anything from tutorials for DMs, how to create areas, character guides, player guides even. We've got information on the event, podcast set up that I'm going to be getting other players around for that were part of the event, as well as a few other things that I don't want to mention just yet because I want to flesh them out a little more before I bring them up. But if there is anything that you want to see, whether it be you need help running a certain thing or you're just asking for a bit of advice, feel free to drop it in the comments below, whether it be on the comments on Facebook or on YouTube, or hell, if you're a patron, drop a comment down, let me know. I'm checking the comments, I'd say daily, but it's not daily. I check them probably once or twice a week. I try to, every time I see something, I will respond to it in some way or another, provided I can, if it's an open-ended comment. If it's just a good work, then thanks, I really appreciate it. But at the same time, I don't know how I add to that. But, actually, before I go, now, this is something that one of my friends got me for my birthday. That's right, I'm getting older. Shut up. So, there's this. It's a potion. Oh, it's just Graham what? It's so cool. We have 2 of those sitting on either end of the table every session. Just little things. But thanks for sticking with us for the time, and I look forward to the future of more videos, more sessions, and Less than that. Thanks for coming. Alright.